So I didn't plan on making this video, but I was playing around with some products that I found in my collection that I hadn't used in a while, and I think I discovered the best sweat-proof long-wearing base combo for summer, and I'm gonna share it with you today. I love like digging through my collection and seeing if there's like a hidden gem that's in there that I haven't been using, and I think I definitely found one. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this miraculous base combo. First off is actually a combination of two sort of primer products. You could mix these or layer them. I'm gonna layer them, starting with the RMS Beauty Re-Evolve Radiance Locking Primer. This is super hydrating and beautiful, and this just literally feels like a glass of water for my skin. You can tell it just gives you that radiance, but it is not at all heavy feeling, which is the key, at least for me, in like my oily sweaty skin in the summer. And then on top of that, to add even more glow, the Saie Super Glowy Gel. This is also water-based, so it feels just as light as the RMS primer. And this is just going to give you that really pretty summer glow. This step is optional. You can kind of just use whatever primer you want. You definitely don't have to use two. But in my opinion, this combo is what gives you the radiance, because we are going to use a powder that I discovered that is very mattifying, but it is so long wearing. So having this as the radiance versus having like the dewy finish, it's really what's going to be the key here. Because we want to be set down and matte and long wearing, but we still want our skin to look healthy and natural and not that like drained sort of matte feeling finish. And I just love using these two together. They go so well together. There's no pilling or anything, and it literally just makes you like a glowing goddess. If you have super textured skin, I do, but I honestly don't mind this. You can use this maybe in more targeted areas. Like I do have a lot of texture down here and I don't put a ton there. I just like putting it all over it. It looks so gorgeous. Next is a product I talk about all the time. You can use whatever foundation you want, but this combo works really well for me. If you know you don't like this, just use your favorite foundation. But I do have a trick for the application. So this is the Kosas Revealer Foundation. You know me, I love this foundation. So whenever I mention this, I do say that it can look a little bit heavy. I am using the shade 130, by the way, which is a little bit dark, but I don't mind it. So the way to sort of combat that, and also just to get your makeup to last a really long time, is to apply with your fingers. I know it like doesn't, like I don't like the feeling of applying my foundation with my fingers, but I notice a huge difference in the longevity and also the look of it, especially with this foundation. Just like really working it in, melting it in, and like combining it with those primers. It really works wonders to thin things out. It's funny, I remember getting a lot of comments about people saying like this foundation smells weird, and I never noticed it when I applied it with a sponge. But when I started applying it with my fingers like this, I do like notice like it just kind of like smells like, I don't know, just like unscented makeup basically, but like it does have a weird, slightly weird scent. But I don't think that means it's like gone bad or anything. It just doesn't have fragrance in it, which I would much prefer over having fragrance. Yeah, you could tell this is definitely like a little bit too yellow. I usually mix this with some blue corrector. So as you can tell, it's not completely blended in. I usually get it to about this point. Really make sure that I'm like working it into the sides of my nose and my smile lines, because those are the areas that get the cakiest. So you really want to work on those areas. Make sure it's like pressed into your skin really well. I'm gonna go wash my hands. I will be right back. So you don't totally need to work this in with just your hands alone. So I usually get it to this point, and then I will go in with a sponge, completely clean one I have here, and then I will press it into my skin. But really taking the time to use your fingers in those areas that are prone to wearing off or getting cakey, it really does make a difference. Gotta make sure I blend this well because it's not my perfect match. So if you're sort of doing this layering trick with different products, you really need to make sure that they're the same base. All of these are water-based, both the primers, and then I believe this foundation is also water-based. So when I'm blending it in with my fingers, it's not going to pill. If you're getting pilling, it's probably because you're mixing a silicone-based product with a water-based product, and when you start rubbing that in with your fingers, it's not going to be a good time. So if you are having that issue, just check the ingredients of your products and make sure that they are the same. I do find that this works the best with water-based. At least for my skin type, they always feel way lighter and they sort of like slip around less than silicone based products do. So now that the foundation is thoroughly blended in, moving on to concealer. So I usually don't ever use this concealer under my eyes because it creases, but I used it with this new powder that I'm going to mention in a little bit, and it did not crease at all, which was like amazing to me. It looked so smooth. So I think that's sort of the key. So this is the Honest Beauty concealer. I love this for blemishes, but now I guess I love it for my under eyes as well. This feels so like high end for the price. It comes in a glass container. This is their Fresh Flex concealer, which I believe is supposed to be creaseless. It isn't really on its own, but with the powder it definitely is. I don't know what shade this is. I will have to link it below. You can buy these on Amazon, by the way, and at least where I live you can get a lot of Honest Beauty products like for 1-day shipping, which is pretty cool. I think this is a really great concealer. Like, it honestly feels like high-end for like a mid-range price. So I just apply my concealer like normal. I'm actually gonna let that sit a little bit. I find that really builds coverage. And I'm gonna put some on my little blemishes too. And then I'm gonna go ahead and start blending this concealer out just using my sponge. Concealer has really good like medium coverage and it's a nice hydrating formula. To me this feels very hydrating and like skincare benefit-esque. Very similar to the Kosas one, but this one I actually like better. I believe it is less expensive than the Kosas one. That one's really emollient on me. Like, it really only kind of works for me on blemishes maybe in the winter. I definitely don't ever really use that concealer in the summer. If you have really dry skin, I think you'd probably like it, but for me it's just way too creasy usually. Next is another key step, so make sure you keep watching and also find out what powder is the secret to this hack. So when I have my concealer on, I do this with everything, but you want to make sure that you really smooth out all the creases and pick up any extra product. So what I do is take usually my ring finger, and this will pick up some coverage, but it just makes the under eye look so much less cakey. And I always go onto the side of my nose that picks up any extra product that we might have just layered too much of. And it basically just pushes that product really nice and deeply into your skin. So it's not really sitting on top, it sort of becomes one with your skin. So when you do set it, it's gonna set down and not really mix with the powder that you're putting on. It's going to stay where it is, and that powder is gonna just lock it in. Also, if you have any other cream products that you need to use, do this now, or actually do it before you do the little finger trick. So cream, bronzer, blush, anything, do that step now, smooth out your under eye, and then we're gonna go in and set. But before we do that, another key step that really extends longevity of makeup, nice little trick that I found out, is take a setting spray, specifically a like long wearing or mattifying one. If you have dry skin, you could definitely use a moisturizing one. I'm going to be using the Thrive Instant Makeup Fix. This says it has crease-free technology. I do feel like it actually does increase the longevity of my makeup. So before we set, we're going to actually spray down the face. I use quite a lot. Just enough to sort of coat my face, and then I'll usually just fan it off. What this is going to do is it's going to land on the foundation as we sprayed it on there. It's going to sort of, whatever like properties this has to increase longevity, it's just going to melt that in with the foundation, because we don't want to necessarily change the powder. You can definitely do it after the powder again to melt that in. I feel like this really helps with long wear. And then I actually like to go in with my sponge one more time to press that setting spray in, smooth anything out, and also possibly pick up any extra product that may still be hanging around. Now we need to set, and this is the gem of the video. I pulled this out of my collection. So I have my everyday makeup drawer where I have just like my everyday makeup, but I will usually rotate things out. The drawers behind me basically have my full makeup collection. So sometimes things just get put in there that I do enjoy and I kind of just forget about them. So I rediscovered this and it is so good. This is the 100% pure bamboo blur powder. So this is like a talc free, it's just bamboo silica, that's the only ingredient. There's a lot of different powders that are just silica, like I think the Jones Road one is, maybe that has some other ingredients. This is my favorite one. I don't know if it's like the way that they milled it or something, or the fact that it's bamboo silica and not some other form. It is so smoothing and mattifying. It can be over mattifying if you have dry skin, but my trick is to use like a very tiny brush. So I've been using the Haley's Beauty. This is their, I believe, contour brush, nose contour brush. It's just a very slightly fluffy brush, really just like any crease brush that you have. And you want to fully coat your brush with powder. I see a lot of videos for like long wearing concealer and base that say you want to use the least amount of powder possible. But the thing is, if you don't have your brush fully coated, like all of the hairs coated with powder, when you go to put this on to something that's wet, if it's not fully coated, it's actually going to start to pick up the wet product and then sort of mix it in. And then that's how you get like that cakiness, but that's not what we want at all. When this brush touches our face, the powder is going to set down the makeup because it's all over the bristles. It's not going to pick up the foundation as you're sort of moving it around. I just go ahead and sort of like roll it in, and you can tap off the excess. By the way, you don't need that much. You just want to make sure that it's fully coated. And then right before I go to set, I just use my finger one more time to make sure nothing has settled. And then I take this tiny brush and then I just start to pat this in. I always start with my under eye. And there is some sort of like powder coming off. You can sort of see that maybe on camera. And I just lightly coat this area. I go right down the sides of my nose into this little nose crease. That's why using a smaller brush is really helpful. I personally set my eyelids, just do whatever you usually do. And then I also go right into that smile line. I'll pick up a little extra product right where I get creased. And hopefully you can see the difference. This is such a blurring primer. Usually I find these types of powders really drying, but lately this one has been working really well for me if I just use this little trick with my base combo. So now let's do the other eye. So again, just doing that same thing, making sure that my brush is fully coated with powder. This has a really interesting container, by the way. It has this sort of net on the top of it, so you can sort of just press the brush into it and then get the excess off. And then again, starting in the inner corner of my eye and working my way out. I've never had my concealer look so creaseless than when I used this powder, and it is talc free. So I usually get like both vertical creasing on my under eye and also like usually the sides of my nose just from like squinting and stuff. But this has helped so much. Again, side of the nose, right down into the smile line. So if you have dry skin, I would only do this in the areas that you crease. But for me, I'm fine with using this to set my whole face as well. I just definitely use a smaller amount with a fluffier brush. I just get some into the lid and then I pat this onto my skin. Always pat when you're setting. I always find that that works way better because we don't want to move the foundation like I mentioned. We just want to set it down as it is because we spent all that time sort of making it creaseless, non-cakey, and all the goodness. So there we have the powdered down finish. This is the smoothest I think I've ever gotten my base to look in like the history of doing my makeup. So I was so obsessed and really happy to discover this combination that I had to share it with you. I will go ahead and insert some close-ups so you can really see how smooth and beautiful it looks. This also looks really great in sunlight. If you don't want it to look this powdery and like maybe you're not as oily or don't get as sweaty as I do, you can totally go ahead with like a moisturizing setting spray or even just this one again. If I really want to last, I might do another coat of this, but I like how this looks. I'm fine with that. I usually add my glow back with glowy like face products. I'm gonna finish up the rest of my makeup and then I will meet you back here to show you what everything looks like together. So this is the full look with that beautiful base combo. Powders go over it beautifully. I really hope that you try this out. Even if you don't use these specific products, you might be able to come up with your own combo, and then maybe if you have any silica based powder, try that with the technique that I mentioned and hopefully your results are just as good as mine. I would love to know below if you try out this technique or maybe your own version and what products that you tried it with. But thank you for tuning in. Please make sure to give it a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. It really helps me out and lets other people find this hidden gem of a base combo. But thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming content from me, like more videos like this, and I will see you in my next one. Bye. Oh, and by the way, if you're curious about any of the other makeup that I did put on my face today, they will be in the link. They will be in the links. Links will be in the description below.